So, we're now talking about the Carrera. Where did I pick up that name? I had the name before I had the watch. And while I was in New York, in those years I spent in New York, I worked quite actively with the Sports Car Club of America. It was a very good client. The people of the members of the club were very good clients for our dashboard stopwatches. And I had lent them 5 or 10 pocket chronographs to do the timing in the Sebring 12-hour race. And so they invited me down to Sebring. For those who don't know, Sebring is a little bit west of Palm Beach and is an old military airport, airport, yes, and which is now a racetrack. And they would have a 12-hour race there. And the public was quite mixed, especially the drivers. They were both gentleman drivers and professional drivers. So when I was down there, for instance, there was Mario Andretti, there was Joe Siffert, there was Jochen Rindt as professional drivers, race drivers. But there were also some gentleman drivers like Georgie Pabst from the brewery, or Paul Newman, typically. So the public was quite interesting, and that's on that moment I decided that this half professional, half gentleman driver mixture was a very good target public for our specialty watches. So since I was invited there, I went to the Ferrari pit. And Ferrari had put at the disposal of 2 young drivers a complete factory race car with all the mechanics and the tires and the spare parts and everything needed. And those 2 boys were Pedro and Ricardo Rodriguez from Mexico. And you'll see afterwards some shootings, some original film that has never been shown so far of the Carrera de Panamericana, which was a race which started in the south of Mexico and went through the regular roads right up to the north on an average speed around 200 kilometers per hour, or about 160 miles per hour, and which was the most difficult race and most dangerous race in the world. In the 5 years that they ran the Carrera Panamericana, there were 35 people killed, either the drivers or the spectators, so they had to stop the race. And I was in the pit with the parents of Pedro and Ricardo Rodriguez. One of these boys was 19 and the other boy was 21. And waiting while they were driving during these 12 hours, I talked to the mother and father who had accompanied their young boys. And they said to me, you know, we're so happy that our boys are so young, because otherwise they would have driven in the Carrera de Panamericana and they would have killed themselves. But faith goes sometimes strange ways. One of the boys killed himself the same year in a car accident in a race, and the other brother killed himself 3-4 years later in another race. So that's the tragic part of this Carrera. But then I went home and loved that name, because Carrera is, first of all, a sexy name. It's understood in all the languages. You feel something with that name, and it means career, it means road, it means race, it means a lot of things. And so I came home and said, I'll make a watch with that name. And then I sat down and decided, now, how shall I do this watch? So in the fall of, this happened all in 1962, that's exactly 51 years ago. And in the fall, I sat down and decided I'd let a watch be done with all the things I had learned at university, because I mastered in production management. And you have to realize that in those years, nothing was digital, everything was analog. And if you misread a dial in a power station, an electrical power station, this could create havoc, right? It could be very dangerous. So I had several lessons, or how do you call them in English, the conferences by professors on legibility of dials, which I never forgot. And I applied it to the rules on the Carrera dials. And I'm very finicky about they make dials on legibility. I'm really like Ulrich said, I'm a legibility freak for chronographs. Anyhow, I was in the same years, it was what, the early 60s, I was also at university befriended with a lot of architects, and we all were in a mood of renewal, because after World War II it took about 10 years or 15 years till everybody woke up and said, let's do it differently, let's innovate. And I was a big admirer of Saarinen, the Finnish designer. Went up to Helsinki to see his buildings. I went to Brasilia to see the buildings of Niemeyer. I loved Corbusier furniture, and I loved Charles Eames. I had a lounge chair, so I was in that mind. And so I said, I will make a dial which has nothing on the dial except a few bars, and a technical innovation helped me to put the 1/5 of a second in the bezel ring. Now, it's not good seen on this model, it's the wrong model. This is the model of the latest model. This is my 80th anniversary chronograph. And this is the newest 50-year anniversary chronograph. Can you show somewhere the original Carrera? No, sorry. Anyhow. Sorry?
Here you go. It's up the screen. It's not the original, but it shows the screen.
Yeah, you see this dial to the right has nothing, no 1/5 of a second. It's in that turning, in that tension ring of the glass. And that made a very clean look. And we therefore came out with this Carrera with a big success in the market, because it was not crumbled like during the war years. The chronographs were very used by artillery officers who had a telemeter, spiral, and things like that. So here I sat down and applied all these design codes and created a watch that really was quite successful. So it lasted until the chronograph market died in 1979. There were no more chronographs, only electronic ones, where you could measure hundreds and everything you wanted. And then it started about 10 years later, they started to come on the market again, and therefore the Tag relaunched the Carrera 1963 model in 1996, right? So that's the first time a Carrera relaunch happened. And then when 40 years were over, that's 1963, 2003, I participated in making the first relaunch of a Carrera, and it was a big success. It was a limited edition of 3,000 pieces. They just went like this and are today collector's items. And then I decided I was going to stop as the honorary chairman of the company, and as a goodbye present I wanted to make my last model, which I made last year, which was the 80-year anniversary watch for myself. It was a Carrera, of course. And now this year they said, come along, we're celebrating 50 years Carrera, and help us with that. And so I participated in the watch I'm wearing here, which is a very innovative way of making a Carrera. You see the push buttons are on the top. It has my signature on the back, and this is my input there. As you have heard, I've been a product man all my life. That's the thing I loved most. I made many, many products, both in my watchmaking career, in my later career. But here I stand, a few weeks or months before I'm going to retire, and I'm really, if I'm honest to myself, I'm really a bit proud to have contributed to a product that has lasted 50 years. Thank you very much.